Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for hanging out till the end. You guys were patiently watching lots of presentations. I was just getting nervous the whole time. But yeah, no, it's been an interesting day. So my name is Peter Hurtigan. I'm going to talk about playing with pragmatics and talk about awareness raising, deliberate practice using a tabletop game. I'm not going to tell you the game yet. You're going to say the name of the game in a moment. Just let me introduce briefly my context. I think context is really important. I think I'm probably the most extreme socioculturalist in this room, judging from the other presentations I've given. So I work at a regional university in Shizuoka Prefecture, actually very close to where JALT is going to be held next year. I work in the Faculty of Foreign Studies at this university campus, and we have also a Faculty of Design and a Faculty of Education, which I think is actually a really good combination. But actually next year, we're moving to a brand new campus, which is even closer to Grandship, where JALT is going to be held, and we're bringing together a bunch of other campuses to consolidate. This is the image of our new university that's going up. I am part of a research group called Japan Game Lab, and this is our website, just a blog, where myself and James York, he's from this area, and Jonathan Dehan, we all write about games and language learning and literacy. And when I say games, probably most of you think of video games. That's the most common connotation because of all the hype around video games. But we're most interested in analog games, tabletop games, other games, and the affordances for learning around those. Most of my research has been happening in our Foreign Language Self-Access Center. So I've been interested in interdisciplinarity and 21st century skills and using games for critical thinking and imagination and participation in the building of communities of practice. We've got a small grant that we've been working on those topics in our Foreign Language Self-Access Center, trying to pull in students from other faculties to participate with us and do interesting stuff. And that's been going well, and actually that's what I talked about at JALT. I'm not going to talk about this here, but just to mention it. And actually, if you go to this website, you can read about this stuff if you're interested in self-access learning. This is a kind of a pedagogical model I developed for that. In that case, we talk about games, prepare to play games, we play games, tabletop games. We make games, design, redesign, remix games. This is a game we're working on called Monikers. We're making the Japan version. We're going to make that free to the world soon. Working with some, because we've got a design department, so might as well. But what I'm interested now is my focus has been self-access learning. Kind of last couple of years, though, I've been gradually bringing games into the classroom and seeing how that could fit with my curricular goals and seeing what works in the classroom. I was a little bit reluctant because there's a stigma that games are just about playing and it's just having fun. But in the game lab, I saw all of these affordances for deep learning, for participation, for multi-literacies, for online, multimodality, so many different affordances that I saw. I got to try this in the classroom. So I'm asking this question: how can games be used in the oral communication classroom, and for what purpose? And I say oral communication is in quotes because I really feel like, especially in 2017, it's almost impossible to separate these modes. What is when someone sends a text message in a spoken genre, essentially? Should we teach about that in a writing class, or should we teach it in an oral communication class? Okay, so it's very hard to a video that is given about reviewing a game or something like that. That's a kind of text that people can watch, and you can read the transcript of it. All these skills are really mixed, so I really believe in kind of keeping that in quotes. And I want to do, even though the class is called oral communication, I like to do more in those classes. Also responding to kind of the weak form of CLT. And this is a slide from the JALT conference, and this is actually produced by my friend who's blogging with me and working in the Japan Game Lab, Jonathan Dehan. He's really kind of a senpai and a mentor. He's very, very knowledgeable about this whole area. But he talks about the weak form of CLT that's common in Japan, where speaking practice is given prominence, text and their genres and their contexts are given more minor roles. Students are not often asked, even when they're thinking about and talking about pragmatics and politeness and things like that, very seldom do they get pushed to think about, okay, what is the context of this conversation? This idea of when you should use certain language in what kind of context. And not only us teaching them about that, but having them think about that and compare. In a Japanese context, what would you do? How would things be? How would you approach things? The teacher is viewed as the facilitator of chat, kind of the guide on the side, rather than an active mediator of broader development. And culture is learned about and not experienced so much. Students are not really, oftentimes, not always, but they're oftentimes not expected to do the hard thinking skills. Even though we want to encourage critical thinking, oftentimes we're not giving them the space, I feel, to use their imagination and their critical thinking skills. And I really feel like games do that, and I'm going to hopefully show you how. I don't know if we're going to have time to play the game that I'm introducing today, but maybe at dinner. It's very short. Also, language is unconnected often to broader context of use. That's what I was kind of talking about with here. What was I going to say about here? Very heavily influenced by the pedagogy of multiliteracies. Anyone familiar with that? Yeah, well, now you are. You're going to get familiar with it. For some reason, it's not widely known about in Japan, but I think if you start reading about it, this is actually Elizabeth G. Her husband, James Paul G., a famous scholar, was part of this what's called the New London group. They kind of push back on a lot of the common accepted truths about literacy in language education, kind of in the 1990s and moving forward. And then they kind of had this kind of manifesto and pushed more for multimodality and multiculturalism. It's kind of the nature of our time, being we're in a very multicultural time and we're in a multimodal time where people are dealing with texts in different ways using technology. So this is actually a new book. I just ordered it. It's a 2017 book, but I haven't read it yet. But I like the cover, so I'm using it. So this is my big question, though. Another question is how can oral communication evolve into something that encourages more pragmatic awareness, meaning, thinking carefully about context, deliberate practice, and ultimately symbolic competence. This is a term by Claire Crumch, which I won't go into here, but it's kind of an intercultural communicative competence that's operationalized in a certain way. And then new and multiliteracies, critical thinking, discussion, collaboration, creativity, and synthesis, and remain dialogic. I really want my classrooms to not be the sage on the stage, style. I want it to be a conversation with my students, and I feel like games have affordances for all that to occur. I have to also say, how can my presentation remain dialogic? That's really important. So let me ask you a question. Let's talk about leaving work. So, did everyone work? Most people work yesterday? Yes. Okay. Yes. Who left at 5 o'clock? 6 o'clock? 7 o'clock? Wow. 8 o'clock. Some late workers. Okay. Now here, imagine the scene from either last night or from recently. Imagine this scene with me. You might have. I did this last night. You might have done the same thing and said the same thing. You're packed up your things, you've left your desk, you're walking down the hall, you see a senior office person who works at your elementary school, high school, university, wherever you work at. They're still working, but you're going to go home. What do you say? They don't speak English. What do you say? You said the name of what we're going to talk about. Perfect, nice job. Osaki ni shitsurei shimasu. That's exactly what you say. in a Japanese context. You guys have great kind of pragmatic Japanese competence, which you learn that over time. Now another question, you're all teachers. Your students come up to you, sensei, osaki ni shitsurei shimasu. Eigo te nani? How do you say that in English? What are you going to say?
Sorry, I'm going now.
Okay, sorry, I'm going now. Any other ideas?
See you on Monday.
See you on Monday.
I'm off, take care.
I'm off, take care. Okay, there's like,
weekend.
Gotta run.
sorry? Gotta run. Have a nice weekend. There's like 6 different answers. That's so complicated. What's the student gonna say with 6 different answers? Oh my god. Isn't there one Kimari Monku that I can say every time?
That's what they want.
No, but there's your teaching moment. But how do you give that to them? How do you access them? How do you let them access that themselves and think about the complexity that's going on here? That's just one example. I'm not going to talk about how to specifically teach the phrase "osaki ni shitsurei shimasu," or I don't know that it's necessarily exactly what they need to learn, depending on the stage of their development. But I want them to think about the context. I want them to do that comparing. Okay, sounds like in America or in Britain, in Australia, in India, in these different contexts, actually when we're leaving, what is the office culture? And what do people say in certain contexts? There's other factors that are involved too, like, Japanese has, gokuro-sama deshita and otsukare-sama deshita, these things that are related to hierarchy. I want students to think about that. And so here is a game. Actually, last year, I had my friend Jonathan Sensei and his wife over, and they came over to my house, and we all have kids, and he brought this game just for fun to play, and so, oh wow, we played this game. It's incredibly simple. The 4 of us, my wife and his wife and him, and it was incredibly fun, incredibly easy to teach. And as soon as we played it, I thought, oh my gosh, this is pragmatics. This is how I can teach pragmatics in my classroom. So I researched more about the game, and this is a site, and I'm going to give you a handout. I'm going to give you guys the directions to the game. I'm not going to give you the game. You're going to have to, it's unfortunately out of print, but you can make it. I have made it. So I'm going to pass this out now and just give you like 2 or 3 minutes to just read through this. I recommend reading the front side of this. The directions are on the back, but I'll explain the directions, hopefully simply and well. This site is amazing, and I'm going to introduce it a little bit more later, but this is kind of a screenshot from this site, which is called Board Game Geek. Do people know that? Yes, are you a board game geek? That's in your favorite. All right, so you got another game. So maybe could you just kind of send these back and make sense of these? I made 50. I think I have enough.
Yeah.
Back. Please. Coming back. Has anyone played this game, or do you know this game already? No. Okay. Good. Just read maybe the description. Just read that one description paragraph. Oh, sorry, I guess the end is cut off by my screenshot. I apologize. I'll say what that last sentence should say. Whoever has the fewest tiles in front of them at the end of the game wins the game. And they say, "Osaki ni shitsurei shimasu," with the hand, "Osaki ni shitsurei shimasu," right? Or they say, in English, there's a phrase that they give you, say, "Oh, excuse me for leaving early," or something like that. A little bit awkward. But that's kind of the point. Yes, we don't really say this, but because we don't say this we don't say it. What does that mean? Anyone can say that. It's possible to say it, and there's international work environments, there are all sorts of work environments, and students can say whatever they want to say. And so it's not a point of just teaching culture didactically. It's like, let's think about the cultural frame, let's think about the contextual factors that are here, and promoting that critical thinking. Okay, so let me just briefly introduce the game. It's so simple. Again, the goal is to go home early. There's 6, right? That's a good goal. Students like that goal. There's 6.
Is it on purpose that this is the last presentation?
You can say Osaka ni Shitsushi Shimasu and leave anytime you want to. No, I have nothing to do with the scheduling. So there's 6 characters. And they all have, this is the front side of the characters, and they all have, there's 2-sided. So there's this side which is kind of blank and the same kind of background for every character. You can see here. And then the other side has the characters doing one of 4 tasks. Okay? So answering the phones, doing inventory, copying, photocopying, and accounting. Those are the 4 tasks. And this is how it starts. You get 6 random characters. You get all 6 characters in front of you, but on the back there will be some random task. And then this is what it looks like when it's set up. So this is our hand. We basically want to give work to other people so we can get out of here, go home. And so let's say you're this guy. A blockhead guy. And we have just turned over this card. Now basically we can give this work to someone who has the same character or is doing the same task. So, we can say kind of, oh, you're already answering the phones? While you're at it, could you make a few more phone calls for me? Like this is my list, I'm going to go. And she must say yes. She must say yes.
I'd be happy to.
Exactly. Great pragmatic competence there. Or if she's doing that same task, she must say yes. Or it's kind of hard to see, but here's the same guy. He's doing a different task. But you could give to that player and say, would you be willing to do this for me? Okay? In Japanese you say, different things. And students can play it in Japanese to get familiar with it and have fun one round. It takes, you can play, it says 20 minutes on the box, you can play it in 7 minutes, 8 minutes, 9 minutes, or something like that. It can go very quickly once they know the rules. Okay, now a little bit more discussion. What could you do with this in your classroom? What would you do with this in class? Why don't you talk to your partner, as we always say, or maybe people around you. I'll give you like 1 minute or 2 minutes.
Or even like at least what I do, they know how to say, would you please get this from me? They know that, right?
Yeah, they have games. This one, you do it every week.
Sorry, if it's not too much to ask, I mean, there may be, if it's not too much to ask,
They're basically the same character. So it's only one of the accounts. So once they put use to it, it's always going to be the same thing as you do the file. You do the file.
I guess you just increase the values.
Okay.
Some other way to do that.
So maybe one or two ideas, just quickly, because we're only have 10, 11 minutes.
What kind of?
One or two ideas? Anyone want to share one idea of what they might do? Yes?
Yeah, our group came up with this idea that we would record the game,
Okay.
and see what kind of patterns,
Hmm.
like the sentence patterns that are used
Mm.
by the students,
Mm.
like the request patterns.
Sure, sure, yeah.
Could you please do it? Would you
Sure.
please do it?
Yeah. Create an opportunity maybe for critical reflection from the
Yeah.
students. They could maybe record and,
Yeah.
right, and analyze, do some conversation now. Maybe one more idea?
If the person is somebody who is close, you use this expression, but if the person is somebody who you don't know really,
Right.
what would you
They're
say?
also
Like,
polite.
I don't know.
Right,
There's
so think
something
about
like
it, right,
rule in
yeah.
pragmatics, like
Yeah.
distance and like, I
Right,
don't remember.
status, distance, and intensity, right? Of request, right? Ishihara-sensei, we have the same teacher, I think, probably. Were you in my pragmatics class at TC?
I think so.
Yeah. You still remember it, yes. Status, distance. No, I often do use this as a way into talking about some of those things. Status, distance, and intensity. How do we change the level of politeness based on who we're talking about? Okay. Let me talk about what I have done around games in this game in my classroom a little bit. Again, as I said, I feel like this game has these really unique affordances, as many games do. The game can be simple, but it's what you do with the game that creates a lot of learning. It's great affordances for deliberate practice of speech acts, politeness, register. You could work on intonation and prosody and things like that, gestures and body language, all sorts of things. You could be giving something to someone, this kind of stuff, and domain-specific vocabulary. I'll talk a little bit about some more specific examples about this. And multi-literacies, intercultural literacy, visual literacy. We could look at the cards, look at how they're put together, what the characters look like. Multimodality, I'll talk about that a little bit later, and reflexivity, kind of having the students think back on what they're doing. That's already been mentioned. And then very rich conversations. This is very scalable, I think. At higher levels, you could talk about work cultures, gender roles. I'll talk a little bit about how we could do that, and hierarchy and power, karoshi, death row over work, this kind of work-life balance. There's a whole wealth of discussions that could evolve from this. Just briefly about the speech acts. Here's from another textbook that I used many, many years ago, but now I use it as kind of a model to think critically about. But this is, Mom and talking to Joey. Mom says, "Joey, would you mind turning down the volume?" Joey says, "Not at all." "I'll clean your room this afternoon." "Sorry, but I have to go to soccer practice." "Well, do you think you could do it after dinner?" "Sure, no problem." "Okay." Is that how your mom talks to you when you were a junior high school? I asked the students this, and they what's strange about this, I asked them, and then they don't think anything for a while, but then they think a little bit more and they say, "Wait a minute." Japanese, my mother says, "Oi!" Say this kind of thing. It's not natural at all. And I said, well, it's not natural in English either. Okay? So we can use textbooks, but let's look critically at the textbooks. And let's not only just look critically, let's help the students look critically at textbooks, okay? So let me just talk very briefly about some classroom ideas. Back to remixing. I really think, and I don't know if people are familiar with this idea of remixing, but remixing means taking parts of things and changing them and then making something new. It's kind of, we're in the remix Jidai in a way, like with the internet. We have so much access to materials and then and genres, and we're remixing all the time. So students could be asked to remix the rules. Change one rule in the game. Change two rules. Change something about the rules. I've had students someone mentioned power relationships and hierarchy. Well, they could visually organize these hierarchically. Who is the CEO? Who is the low-level employee? Where do you think the women end up when the students are asked to do that? Oftentimes they're the lowest level of the pyramid. There's a discussion right there. I don't have to impose my views. That could be fine if they think that's where women should naturally be. But there's a discussion to be had there. right? Why did you put them there? And just, raising that awareness, having a discussion about that. The characters could be changed. I said, okay, make the characters new. Or say something about the characters, and I've done this. I brought a few of my students' character they wrote on the back. This is Toda Hiroshi. He's the chief director of a big company. He's stubborn but gentle. He likes golf. He likes golf and public baths. He has kept his hairstyle since he was in kindergarten. Students, simple communicative tasks. Students worked on that together. Then they introduced it to another group. Communication with a purpose. This guy's he's a mid-level employee. He likes triangles. I don't know, his hobby is playing the triangle, apparently. They're very creative when you give them the chance. He's a bit dim. They decided the categories. That's what I was scaffolding that. I helped them, how do you say something where they were using their dictionary. But when you give them these opportunities, they're very, very creative. They decided the categories, like what should we, okay, let's make little character profiles. What do you want to talk about? And they came up with hobbies and personality and position, things like this. So remixing the characters, hierarchy, position, I talked about that. The work environment. Well, you could say, let's change the work environment. Do you have a part-time job? Yes. Okay. Where do you work? Starbucks? Okay. Let's make this about Starbucks tasks. Well, I don't know what you have to do at Starbucks. I don't work at Starbucks. Why don't you think about that vocabulary and those tasks? And why don't we make this game, remix the game? Let's make it Starbucks. That's making coffee, making lattes, whatever. So these are some ideas of remixing the game. And then I ask them to share and then oftentimes playtest, which is the idea of iterative design, and it's actually the scientific method, testing hypotheses. If you change a rule, tweak the rules, what will happen if I play this? You don't know until you try it. And so you could do like a jigsaw activity. Our group works on new rules. We go to your group. I'm the representative. I introduce our rules to you. You guys understand. You need to understand because you're going to play it. So we have to communicate for a purpose. Then we play it, and then I say, what did you think? How was it? And they give me some feedback, go back to my group. They liked the game, they said this was hard, it was too long, then okay, we can do iterative design, even at a very low level, okay? Transcribing was mentioned before. You can have them record and transcribe gameplay. This is a form. Actually, my colleague James York made a version of this, and I borrowed it. What was said, they could record, they could go do homework on this, and then we could work on that in class, repairing. Debriefing, and this is where the rich discussions come from after the game. Discussions based on shared experience. How did you feel while playing the game? What happened in the game? How is this different or similar to the real world? What did you learn? What values does it promote? Could the game be changed? What effect would these have? All these are more questions for higher level students, but some of the questions, how did you feel playing the game? A lot of people could answer that question. Extending, and here we go, extending. So send them back to Board Game Geek. Talk about multiliteracies and participation. Here's the overview of the game. They could read that. They could look at the ratings. They could look at the forum. Look at the images, videos. People upload. This game, I'm not sure how many there are because it's out of print now. I think there are actually a few reviews in Japanese. If you go to the video section, you'll see hundreds of languages. You can sort by language, and you can see reviews in all sorts of languages, reviews and how to play videos. They could watch those as a sort of source of input. They could also make them. Ultimately, in some classes, they could do all sorts of things related to videos. Lots of stuff that could be expanded there, and that's a way to kind of get beyond the classroom. And to be honest, students are motivated by this kind of task. If they've played the game and had fun, maybe tried to make a variation, then they oftentimes want to go in and engage with the game online. So I think that's it. I think I should say thank you. I should say here's my email. and visit japangamelab.org if you're interested. And I should also, of course, I should say, comments, or I'll take those. Okay. Ladies first. Of course.
How many times are you using this game in your classes? Are you using them, do you use the game every week with different goals in mind? Or
I often, right now, the way I'm doing it, you know, you could play, you could do a whole semester around this game if you planned a syllabus that way. I focus on, and I've used it at mostly lower level. I focus on politeness and speech acts a little bit, and I usually do it for 2 or 3 weeks. Usually, yeah, depending on the level of class, how long it takes to scaffold the stuff. But yeah, about that. But I have other things that we work on too. But yeah. And I have the time over mark, but maybe one is copy.
No, I'm interested on that part, on your other games. So I mean, just to be very, very quick, I have background in cultural anthropology, so that, I mean, I'm drawn to teaching intercultural communication. And before teaching English, I was into digital game research. So that's why I'm so interested in it. So question is, it would be great to have other games to teach topics like other intercultural communication topics like personal space or stereotypes and all that. So my question, do you have other games? What are there? What other things?
Yeah, no, I have a whole library of games now, and I use them for different purposes to think about different issues. If you visit Japan Game Lab, you'll see we talk about some of the games we've used in different ways. I think I literally have, I'm over time now, so I can't really introduce them. But the other thing is, on Japan Game Lab, I've made a list of resources of other people's lists of games. There's now, we're kind of in a renaissance of board game design. And so, and there are several language teachers now emerging that are finding new ways to use games in their class. And so if you go here, you'll find resources that link to some of them. One is Tefl Gamer, I think, is one of the people. And yeah, I've used different games. I use a game called Monikers. That's the game we're making, is this game called Monikers. I use that, and yeah,
Unusual Suspects is a good one for stereotypes. It's kind of like Guess Who, but if you know that old game, but it's kind of an updated version where you ask questions about a person, and they, based on their preconceptions of what the picture of a person looks like, they will make associations.
it's not so much cross-cultural, I use a game called Snake Oil to talk about persuasive language. That's a game where you're trying to sell kind of ridiculous products by combining, the water bottle folder, kind of selling products. I do that at the higher level. But yeah, I think if you check the resources, you'll find some. I think we gotta stop there. I'm coming to dinner though.